Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Disclaimer, this is a dark one. We're going to be reacting to online crime, a case that involves rape, abuse, incest. So I'm just going to give you the disclaimer. If that's not for you, I definitely recommend getting off. I don't even know if it's for me, y'all. I've seen so much freaking true crime. I feel like I'm okay with watching these disgusting, horrible people who deserve to be put to death and shame, but I'm going to compose myself in this video so I can also understand what's going on, because the title is definitely a little... This is a case about parents who are being accused of rape, incest against their own children. So what I got to say to that, let's just get into it, because I'm actually curious about what's going on. And then I'm going to rant, I'm pretty sure at the end of this and throughout this, but I'm going to try to compose myself so we can all gather the information, be mad together. So let's get into it.
A Pennsylvania man and woman are facing some of the most shocking charges involving a young child under the age of 13. We are going to be digging into how police were able to track down the accused rapists with former sex crimes prosecutor Serena Townsend. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. We have ever reported here on Sidebar, and that is not something I say lightly. In fact, the affidavit of probable cause is so disturbing that we can't show you the vast majority of it. But what we are going to do is try to bring you as much detail as we can, as much context as we can to you. What this is a very sick story, and I apologize right now for what we're about to say. But these two people that I'm about to mention are now locked up in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, each on $1 million bail. 56-year-old John James DeHart and 35-year-old Sarah Lee Miller, who also goes by the name Sarah Souter. They are accused of raping their own child. The two were charged back on April 16th. DeHart was arrested just a couple days later in Philadelphia. Police put out the word that they were looking for Miller, and she was arrested May 8th. Her last known address was in Luzerne County. According to what is a truly stomach-turning criminal complaint, both DeHart and Miller are accused of sexually abusing their child. Yes, their child. Before I get into this any further, I want to bring in former sex crimes prosecutor Serena Townsend.
Where do I even start with that sentence? I guess I could start by saying evil does exist. People don't need kids. The death penalty should really be they need to reinstate it, because it's not here. People are put on death row and stayed there for years. We need to actually flip the switch and turn it on and get these people out of here. Yeah, definitely stomach turning. Just your own child. How much this is really sick to the stomach. A mother, you had this baby. How disgusting of you. How just, it's inhumane. It's disgusting. It's, oh my God, I got a lot of words to say. Let's just play it, because I got 20 minutes.
Serena, good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Just when you think child abuse can't get any worse, now the idea of parents sexually abusing their own children in an incest form of... I don't know what the right word is. I'm curious, have you ever seen or heard anything like this in your career?
I have. It is rare, because this is, as you said, the most heinous type of crime one could ever imagine. It's bad enough to have a child sex victim, but for it to be somebody's own child, and in this case, both parents abusing and raping this child, it really is almost unheard of. It's horrifying, and there is a reason why there are separate laws, not only for rape, but for child abuse, and for incest in and of itself.
Unfortunately, yes, there's a reason we have these laws, because it does happen. It's just unthinkable. I want to go through this with you, and we'll talk about it. Let me talk to you about how the abuse came to light back in December of 2023. This is when an apparent witness reported to Manor Township Police that the assaults had taken place in nearby East Hempfield Township. Now, the detective stated that during a Lancaster County Children's Alliance forensic interview, a declaration was made by witness number one. This person's not identified, but it says witness number one stated that the victim number one was previously sexually abused by the defendant, John DeHart. And after the witness came forward, the police did a forensic interview with the victim. So Serena, first, talk to me about what you think a witness came forward, who you think that could be in relation to this
like a teacher
victim, and is that usually how this happens? And then talk to me about what exactly is a forensic interviews and how an interview and how that works.
Sure. Yes. So what we see very often in child abuse cases, sexual abuse cases, is a delayed outcry. Delayed outcry is essentially a legal term for a child who was sexually abused or raped and did not tell anybody for quite some time. This is very, very common for obvious reasons. The child is confused, the child is scared. Obviously, oftentimes the child is living with the person, because sadly we know that sexual abuse of children usually happens by somebody that the child knows. It's rare that it's the actual parent, and it's horrifying, but usually it is somebody that the child knows, and therefore the child usually does not disclose the sexual activity or the rape until much later. Oftentimes, whoever finds out about it is also either a relative or a teacher or somebody that the child has grown to trust, even a friend. So this witness, this mysterious witness, could possibly be another relative or a teacher, or again, a friend that perhaps this person trusts.
And forensic interviews, those are
Yeah.
very sensitive. How do those work?
Very sensitive. There is a specific sort of training that's required to interview successfully a person who was so badly traumatized as a child. What happens when you are raped, especially when you're a child, is you kind of encode those memories differently, and your ability to retell what happened to you is very different than somebody who was, maybe robbed as an adult or assaulted at a
Right.
bar or something like that. So a forensic interview is one where a specialized detective who's taken specialized training knows how to ask you certain types of questions in a certain type of way to make you comfortable and for you to be able to access those traumatizing memories.
Let's talk about those memories. Going through this court filing, it says, quote, victim number one stated that they were sexually, physically, and emotionally abused by their whole blood father, who they identified as the defendant, John DeHart. Victim number one was asked who John DeHart was to them, and they responded with, not a really great person. Victim number one stated that the sexual abuse occurred from the age of blank until the age of blank, when victim number one was separated from the defendant in 2013. So the complaint has the numbers redacted, but reporting indicates that the victim was between the ages of 4 and 6. Process that for a second. 4 and 6.
Let me process that. If that's right. 4 and 6, like 4 and 6, just so unimaginable, so traumatizing for that child. And for it to be their own blood father, anybody, if it was anybody, your birth father. Like, y'all, do y'all know the case of Eddie Lee Sexton? I believe I got that right. I'll put the picture of him up there if you know what that is or who that was. Disgusting man. Family of 12. He sexually abused every last one of them, him and his wife, I believe. And they ended up, I saw the whole podcast. It was a long one. I watched it with Stephanie Sue. Love her. It was a whole, did he get death? I know he died. I believe he died. But that, y'all, it was just like the parents assaulting their kids, raping their kids. It was so freaking traumatizing. That freaking, that story was dark as I don't know what. And I was like, that stuff really do happen. And you just wouldn't imagine that that's like the ultimate betrayal of your parents. That's what's so sick about all of this, and the fact that like from so young, people don't need kids. I'm gonna stop saying these days, because this was obviously, they said since they had kids, people don't need kids. I feel like just nobody need kids. Okay, there's some sickos out there, and they meet each other and they have kids to like do sicko things, and that stuff really do exist. You just would not imagine that this happened. This is so sad. It's just so dark. And for a mother to do that, you're just the ultimate scum. The birth dad, y'all are like below scum. And it's, let me finish it. Let me just continue playing this, y'all. When I say
Sarah
bottom
Miller's
of
affidavit
it,
paperwork, it names her instead of DeHart. Otherwise, the affidavit is nearly the same. So both the mother and the father are allegedly complicit in this abuse. And the criminal complaint goes into
throw away the key.
graphic detail about what the child's parents forced them to do. Again, I'm not going to get into it, but there are a few parts of the affidavit that stand out, and I want to get Serena's perspective on it. So the affidavit states, quote, victim number one stated that a form of punishment was that they would be escorted to the basement and told to sit by the door. The lights, which were previously on, would then be turned out. Victim number one reported that when they were in the basement, they would be without clothing for approximately 1 to 2 hours. Victim number one stated that the punishment would end by John unlocking the basement door and providing victim number one with clothes. Victim number one also reported that on one occasion in the basement, victim number one was unclothed and John pointed a small gun at them. John reportedly told victim number one, "This is a warning," when pointing the gun at victim number one for approximately 5 seconds. Serena, your reaction?
Yeah, listen, as traumatizing as the rape is in and of itself, you don't even need to ask whether this poor child was, consented. There is no such thing as consent when this child is as young as this child was. But then to add on the absolute torture of being locked in a basement while naked, being, threatened at gunpoint by your own father. I mean, I don't know how this child comes back from this. It is the worst kind of thing that could ever happen to a person. And, the defendants are going to be facing, hopefully, a very long time in prison for what they did.
Please.
This is above and beyond sexual depravity. This is absolute torture.
Unfortunately.
But before he starts, I want her to say this to y'all. And the sad part of it all, it's like you have it's your birth father. This man attacking you, assaulting you, pointing a gun at your face, and you have nobody to go cry to. You can't go talk to your mom because she's consulting with this. And a part of it all, you have them like pointing a gun at your face, like acting like this is all your fault. When I say, like, there are some evil people out here, there really is. It's just, I can't imagine what that child was going through. That is so scary. Like she said, how do you come back from this? Like, these are the people who supposed to take care of you. Like, this is the ultimate betrayal. And it's just, it's a lot. It's just a lot.
There were other children who also lived in this home, so victim number 2 and victim number 3 seem to have escaped sexual abuse, at least according to the criminal complaints, but they were still allegedly subject to physical and emotional abuse. It reads, quote, on Thursday, March 28, 2024, victim number 2 and victim number 3 were forensically interviewed separately. Victim number 2 reported that John picked them up and took them over to the oven in the kitchen as if John was going to put them inside. Victim number 3 stated that they were standing in the corner of the kitchen and John picked them up and said something along the lines of, "Who wants to be my dinner?" The affidavit narrative ends with a heartbreaking statement after the victim described an assault in the shower. Victim number 1 stated that Sarah kept explaining that what was happening in the shower was normal and not to be scared. Victim number 1 stated that since it was their mother saying these things, they believed her. Serena, I know these are just allegations, but wow. I mean, that alleged psychological manipulation is to another level.
It is, and that's why this is really almost completely unheard of. It's monstrous. These people took, the most beautiful thing that you could be as a parent, a mother or a father, and you would think that they would treat their children like royalty, like what they should be treated, and they took what would normally be a beautiful experience and turned it into a living nightmare for their children. it can't be understated. It's the worst thing that could possibly ever happen. A child trusting their mother, trusting their father that, what they're exposing them to is normal, is okay.
And that happens, right? That happens. The victim is made to believe that it's your fault or this is normal. And that psychological trauma can sometimes, right, be harder to recover from than the actual physical trauma.
And there go, the psychological trauma. Now, before I even say the only way to look, the way I look at this with the mother behavior and the fact that he said, "Who wants to be my dinner?" is the absolutely just disgusting thing I think I've ever heard. Ill to your child. Like, I hope they get the worst of the worst when it comes to this. Look, the mother, y'all, the fact that she said it's normal, like he said psychological, making them think that she was abused. You had to be. That's the only way I can look at this and be like, she had to have been abused in her whole, like, her lifetime to, like, think this way. I feel like either it was by him because she looked younger than him and he, like, abused her and he had some crazy stuff happen in his childhood. This stuff like this goes back to childhood 100% because they learn those ways and they think it's okay and they're okay with, like, putting their issues and their problems and their disgusting things on other people. That's just how I look at it, especially with trauma to this extent. It goes from childhood. That mother saying that really is a big thing. I really do think she was, like, most likely, like, assaulted when she was younger, but to put that on your own children is just another level of just stuff you can't come back from. And this is, like I said, I keep saying it, this is, like they said, to the ultimate betrayal by your own parents. This is absolutely filthy, absolutely disgusting. I pray I'm so tired of hearing, even though, like, they most likely, this is not even most likely, this is 100% mental. It's just so much mental, psychological. These people need to be put away. They're disgusting, just animals.
Absolutely. It is quite telling. I did a little bit of research on this individual, on John DeHart, and it seemed like he's had a past.
We're going to get into that. We're going to save that because we're going to get into that too. Sure. But this also, the threats, putting them in the oven, this level of punishment. Have you ever seen anything like this? Hopefully you haven't, but I don't know.
I've seen a lot in my career, and I really have not seen anything like this. I can't explain it. Nobody can explain it, hopefully. This is hopefully a thing that almost never happens, and we have to treat it like that. They have to be, if this did happen, punished accordingly.
By the way, you don't have just victims. You have other witnesses here, right? So every one of these victims who are testifying, who are providing this information in forensic interviews, separated, right? So they're separated from one another. It's not like they can, and that's important, right?
That's right. So with these forensic interviews, you have to be extremely delicate and make sure that you don't have one person in the room with other people so that they could be influenced by the story. If these forensic interviews are happening correctly and these individuals are telling the same story but separately, then it smacks of the truth. I mean, it lends credibility to the storyteller.
You talked about the charges. Let's talk about them. So there's specific charges that DeHart and Miller are facing. DeHart faces 15 charges. Miller's charged with 13. DeHart include 2 counts of rape of a child, 2 counts of statutory sexual assault, 2 counts of involuntary deviant sexual intercourse with a child, 2 counts of incest, 3 counts of indecent assault of a person less than 13 years of age, 1 count of corruption of minors, 2 counts of endangering the welfare of a child, 1 count of terroristic threats. According to the additional information that accompanies the statute for rape of a child, the criminal complaint says that the defendant forced victim number 1 to have intercourse with Sarah Miller. Another says that DeHart committed statutory sexual assault when he forced victim 1 to have intercourse with Miller. And according to the statute, and that the above named defendant did engage in sexual intercourse with victim number 1 under the age of 16 years, and that person is 11 or more years older than victim 1, and victim 1 and the defendant are not married to each other. DeHart also faces accusations of incest. Quote, in the above named defendant knowingly marries, cohabitates with, or has sexual intercourse with victim 1, who is an ancestor, descendant, brother, sister of the whole or half-blood, or uncle, aunt, nephew, or niece of the whole blood, and is under the age of 13 years. That might have been a little hard to file, but the complaint specifically states that DeHart is the whole blood father to victim 1, Miller is the whole blood mother to victim 1, and this happened. And the first, by the way, endangering the welfare of children count comes from the allegations that DeHart locked victim 1 in the basement for hours, pointed a gun at their head. The second count is the allegations from the other 2 victims that DeHart had tried to put them in an oven. And the terroristic threat charge comes from the allegation that DeHart pointed a gun at the victim's head and said, "This is a warning." Serena, talk to me about these charges. I think, first of all, how serious they are, what we're looking at as a penalty.
Hold on, y'all. Ooh, I gotta hurry to get through this. That was really hard to listen to. Those charges are no joke. This whole case is no joke. This is most definitely one of the darker ones. This is just for a child to have gone through that is just so unimaginable, so heartbreaking, so sad. This is definitely up there with one of the most sick ones I think I've heard, and I've heard a lot of them, y'all. Literally, it's it's the fact that they're birth parents.
So, how are they able to be brought? There's no time bar here. There's no statute of limitations, even though these are offenses that allegedly happened a long time ago.
Yeah, so these are very, very serious charges carrying potential decades in prison, thankfully. The indictment and the fact that the prosecution has thrown this many charges at the case, it tells me that they wanted to capture every possible bad act that was committed, every possible crime. Why? Because they want to make sure that they get a conviction. It's not, these kinds of cases are so horrifying that juries do tend to convict, but it's also very difficult to have this child, even though this child is now a teenager, take the stand and testify about this traumatic event. And so they want to protect that conviction. They want to put as many charges as possible so that if they don't get one, if they can't prove, 3 or 4 of them beyond a reasonable doubt, they'll at least still have many to choose from in order to sentence these individuals appropriately if and when they are convicted. Statute of limitations is a very interesting concept, especially with respect to child sex abuse and rape, and has recently been changed in order to allow more cases to proceed that otherwise would have been barred by the statute of limitations. Even though these incidents happened a while ago, like you mentioned, 2011 to 2013, the statute of limitations on this type of case allows for the prosecution and even a civil lawsuit much later in life. Why? Because lawmakers understand now that children do delay in disclosing these kinds of horrible events. And we don't want, society to suffer, and we don't want to preclude that child, now an adult or almost an adult, to be able to seek justice for what happened to them so long ago.
Yeah.
So we are proceed at this point.
And that makes a total sense. And I talk about the penalty. I think rape of a child in and of itself is 20 years in prison, the maximum. And if they're convicted across the board of everything, or they plead guilty to everything, I imagine the judge would issue consecutive sentences one after the other, so that they're never released. But this is where it gets interesting, because Miller, faces similar charges minus the terroristic threats and endangering the welfare of a child. But there's more to this story, because Miller and DeHart have previously been convicted of child abuse. That's what we were talking about. DeHart has a very active online presence. He posts TikTok videos several times a week.
Ew.
According to his personal website, he's a poet, film writer, novelist, social activist, pastor.
And not doing nothing, probably.
Corrections officer, but he's previously been convicted in Pennsylvania of endangering the welfare of a child in 2013.
When stuff like that happen, why are people like child welfare programs? Why don't they check on these kids? I feel like it's already a heinous crime itself, but he has history, and I'm like, he has history. I just don't understand how they don't be checking on these kids with these people who have history with this stuff. It's just so mind-boggling that that happens a lot. They really they leave these kids with these people. Those kids should have been taken a while ago, especially if he was the one that was charged with something, and now him and the mom, and the fact that it's 2011 through 2020, that's a long time. The system is just so, the justice system, the system that's supposed to protect kids is all bad, and they don't protect kids at all. I'm so tired of hearing these companies and all these businesses with that, welfare programs. They always talk about how CP, and then with Child Protective Services, yeah, CP, they always talk about, you know, they don't have enough people to like watch it, to like go check on everybody. But I'm like, if a man is accused of something, you go check. You need to check that out, especially when there's kids in the home, and they should be. I just think they should be taken away, even if it was like minor. They should go check, because you never know what's going on, and they should continue to check up on them. I don't care. It's just not enough being done.
Decent sexual intercourse with a minor and endangering the welfare of children in 2014. He entered guilty pleas in both cases. He was sentenced to 6 to 12 months in prison for the 2013 conviction and 4 to 8 years for the 2014 conviction. He also had to register as a sex offender. That's our understanding. And then with Sarah Lee Miller, doesn't seem to have much of an online presence, but we were able to find her criminal record, and the reports indicate that she pleaded guilty in 2014 to corruption of minors, was sentenced to 11 to 23 months in prison with 4 years probation. She was charged again in 2017 when she didn't register as a sex offender with state police, so she was sentenced to 10 to 36 months in prison. How are they...
And I bet he's about to say the same thing. How are they able to keep their kids? How are they able to keep their keep their children in their homes? That actually don't make no sense. Once again, the system is so shot, because that should not have happened. They both have criminal histories with children. That's all you need to remove those children from the home. They don't do enough, y'all.
They out to do this? That's my question. How were they out to allegedly do this? I know these are allegations. I know they're innocent until proven guilty, but how were they out?
How were they out, and how are they allowed to have their children living with them?
Yes, that's the question.
It is horrifying. It is insane. Both of them are sex offenders. I mean, DeHart can call himself whatever he wants, a poet, police officer, but he's going to be known in his own history as a pedophilic sex offender. So, you know, that's who he is, and that is who his wife is as well, or Sarah Miller, who... I thought there was also some talk about her being his stepdaughter at some point.
Because she looked younger than him.
There is something very, very wrong going on in that home. And I don't know how they were out to be able to
legally speaking. Why? I don't get it. Why was the punishment right for those crimes? Was it sufficient? Was there nothing more that could have been done? Sometimes that's the way it works, but it just seems to me that I don't know how children were left in their care, how they were able to not be monitored, how they were out to be free. Hindsight, I know, is 2020, but that, from a legal point of view, were what they were convicted of, or what they pled guilty to, did that make sense?
This is a failure of the criminal justice system right here. This is just a complete failure. You have cases, I had, as a prosecutor, sex crimes prosecutor, you have different types of sex crimes cases. You just do. And some are more horrific than others. And you're right, there's no crystal ball necessarily, but there are features of certain defendants and certain cases that make you think and make you very concerned about the future. And yes, even after they were released from prison, both of them, they had to register as a sex offender. And in order to do that, there is a hearing. It's called a SORA hearing, Sex Offender Registry Act hearing, where a judge determines the level sex offender that they have to be. And that determines how long they have to register for. Oftentimes it's for the rest of your life, and what kind of supervision they will be exposed to. And so in my mind, these two individuals who already committed absolutely depraved acts should have been supervised. I don't know where Child Protective Services were with respect to these children who have now come out and said that they were abused. It is a complete embarrassment and failure of our system.
And as I said, one of the worst cases we have ever covered here on Sidebar. Serena Townsend, really thank you for coming on. I know
I basically said everything I need through this video. Y'all, just to sum it up again, like, child services really, that's the most shocking part. And that's where at the end we found out that these two people have histories with children. They have been to jail. They've been on probation. They're sex offenders. Why were they able to keep their kids? The system, they don't care, and they need to really do better at protecting kids. They don't protect them. You see how when kids are put in foster care, when kids are put in foster care system, stuff happens and they don't check on them. They're definitely part of the problem. But this duo of parents, that we're not even calling them parents no more, they're just monsters. You do this to your own flesh and blood. You're absolutely scum, disgusting, bottom of the barrel scum. They deserve death, and I pray they're obviously. I hope they're going to get I would say 100. I wish they're going to get life in prison. That's just that's impossible not to do that. This is straight. They tortured their child. They assaulted their child. It's just so, like, it's on another, like, scale of disgusting, and just so sad for the kids. They have 3 children, and they, like, to tell your child, like, basically throw them in the oven, or like attempt to throw them in the oven, and just ew, pointing the gun at your child, doing things. That's just, I can't talk about this no more. This is absolutely disgusting. Like I said, I watched that Eddie Lee Sexton case, and that was absolutely traumatizing. Literally, when I was like watching podcasts and mukbangs, you know, Stephanie used to do the mukbang stories. When I was watching it, it was absolutely disgusting. Hearing it, I was like, oh my God, who can do that? And there are people out here, some sickos, some goddamn sickos who need to be put away on another planet, on Rikers Island, throw away the key, drown them. Anyways, on that note, I'll let you guys go. I'll see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Bye.